So welcome everybody. And Paul, let's start with a very obvious question. Why do we need to build a brand? If you're a business or indeed an individual, what's the important thing about building a brand? Why should we do that?
Okay, so very simply, what you want to do is you want to associate you, your brand or your business brand with your area of expertise and the values that you work really hard to attain. And then over time, you build your credibility, your authority, and your authenticity. So, you stand out from the crowd because it's your story. And how do you do that? Well, you define your niche, find your audience, who are they, and how are you going to communicate with them? And then people buy from people, that old phrase, Ruth, and it really is still, think of Steve Jobs and Apple and all this, right? Even for big technological companies, even more so maybe. So somebody, i.e. you or somebody in your business, has to become the recognizable face of your brand so that people can start to build this relationship with your brand online. And I just want to say, not an intern, okay? It has to be somebody who is really involved in the mission and vision of your business.
Right, okay. So what is the value that you would attach to building a brand with video?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about three main areas. So the first one is, it builds awareness, okay? So you grow your audience, you grow your followers. But more importantly, you grow the followers in your target audience, the people you're trying to speak to to sell your product or service. Secondly, it nurtures prospects online. So you stay top of mind with them. And like I just recently, I had to do a consultation video consultation for a property buyer. So I was going to help her improve her videos and the videos she put online and the way she did them. So she'd been following a lot of my content on LinkedIn for a while, and we'd communicated via email. And then our consultation was like this, via on video. And when we started the call, she actually remarked it was like she knew me already. So there was real evidence that video creates a great impression, or starts to create an impression of you for your customers even before you speak to them. And the third thing that is really important is that video, it shortens your sales cycles, okay? So if you're a B2B company and you have a high CLV or customer lifetime value, they're not going to make a decision in half an hour. There's this 7-hour rule they talk about where there's meetings and calls and connections. Well, video shortens this because, content, and particularly video content, because you're putting this content online, you're building your authority and trust with these prospects. You might be even answering some questions that they have about your product or service. And also they're getting a good impression of you. They're starting to say, oh, I could do business with this person. So you're actually talking about, we want to do business with people we like as such. So there are the three areas about why the value of content. But there's one caveat, Ruth, right? So I'd like to say, when we think about it, it's not the Google ads, right? It's not like you pay for your Google ads, you get your clicks, you get your feedback, It's more like your SEO, right? Where you do your work on your website, you spend ages at it, and then slowly over time, you see the results come in. And content is like this. If you put video up 1 week, don't expect the doors just to open the next week. It's something that builds over time.
Okay, right. And is it true that video is the most powerful way to communicate your message to your audience?
Right. So it is, right? And I'm just going to give you a few stats, first of all, okay? So Wistia, who are one of the world's biggest business video hosting companies, they just released their 2021 report, right? And in 2019, there was over 6 billion, that's billion, minutes of video watched on Wistia. And it's business video. It's not cat and dog videos. It's business video, right?
Right.
In 2020, it was over 12 billion. It nearly doubled, right? So there's a huge amount of video being watched, right? So that's a fact, right? So as well, this is from Insivia, right? And they did a study, and if you have a message and you put it in a video, people will remember about 95% of the message. If it's text only, they might remember only 10%, okay? So it really gets your message across. And finally, and this is from HubSpot, if your post is a video post, it'll get 48% more views. So you just get more engagement. So they're the numbers, right? And also, it accelerates connection and building relationships online. So if like I often talk to new prospects, and they might mention that, you know, they liked a video or it struck a chord with them, or a series of videos that I did, they like it. And that just shows to me that the power of video and the power of building connections with it. And
is it also true, sorry to interrupt you there, Paul, but does it shorten that route between when somebody first comes across you online and starts building up that rapport with you to the point where they actually decide to become a customer? Is that journey from initial introduction to actual becoming a customer, is that shortened through the use of video?
Now, I haven't got actual stats for that, but subjectively, I do think so, right? Because with your content, you're thinking about your target audience, and you're thinking of the questions they have and how you can help them. So you're making yourself a thought leader, or you're making yourself an expert in their eyes, so you can see them coming to you quicker. From my experience,
right?
And just to finish off, as regards the power of video, Ruth. So 2020 was the year of long form video. So like what we're doing now, loads of webinars, loads of long sort of videos recorded, right? So a lot of companies have generated a lot of content. So with this content, you can actually cut that content up into nice bite-sized pieces for use on your social media. Okay, so you can really repurpose video. And for myself, I've had longer videos, maybe of 2.5 minutes, where there was, I had maybe 5 points in it. Now, the video got good interaction, but then afterwards, I cut it up into what I call micro content of like 10 to 30 seconds. When I put this online, I was nearly getting the same reaction from the 5 pieces of video as I did from the 1 video. And I think we have a clip of this, actually.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, we missed that, but it was only 10 seconds long, right? But it was actually it was a point on keeping your content short, actually. So it's 10 seconds. But so what I found with that as well is that, so I released it once, and then about 4 or 5 months later, I released the 5 snippets. I got great feedback, right? And then 6 or 8 months later, because it was good content, I released it again. I got engagement, but also I got conversations going with my ideal clients. So I'm not talking about putting out the same content all the time, but it does work sometimes to actually, if you have good content, to release it again.
Wow. So let's go to the real nuts and bolts of it. Paul, how do you start creating content if you are a business or you want to build your individual brand? How do you go about finding the stuff that you should be talking about?
Okay, so the first thing to do is not to post. Okay, so that's get clear about that. Don't go crazy posting, right? The first thing is to get clear is about your ideal client and the profile. There's a few different areas that are audiences that you want to speak to, create a number of ideal client profiles. And with the ideal client profiles, you're talking about who they are, what interests them, what are their fears and frustrations, what are their goals, and what is stopping you attaining those goals, and then think about your business and how you can help them, and more importantly, your content and how you can create content that will help them, interest them, or solve a problem for them. And I think as well, when you start off creating your content, we have to get away from this idea of selling on social media, okay? Because we're trying to set ourselves up as a resource for our target audience. So I would say very little selling itself on social media.
So in other words, you're there to just build awareness of your product or your service, and just keep your business in the uppermost minds of the audience. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. And what I would say is that you should break that down probably into three main areas, okay? So the first area is, as we were talking about there, expertise. So like for myself and for everybody else, you're setting yourself up as a thought leader in your area, and you're answering specific questions that you think your ideal client profile has. You're giving your opinions on trends in the industry, and you're becoming a resource for your audience. Like, for example, something that I put content out a good bit is about video and storytelling and how to use that in your content. And that gets good reaction from my audience. So that's the first thing, expertise. And the second is credibility. And this is probably not so much, but you're showing some of the work you've done, maybe client testimonials and case studies. And when you're putting this online, I always find it's great to tag in my customers and hopefully get some nice comments there as well. And this is great for your audience to see. And also it's more exposure for your customers. So you have expertise and credibility. And finally, a bit more of a tricky area is rapport, right? Nobody really wants to do it. It's, we're on business channels. So rapport we're building a bit more trust, and we're kind of fleshing out who we are. And I suppose we're just building a bit more of a relationship with our online community. So this is quite tricky. I think I've got a video there that I put up a few weeks ago. Is myself and my wife. We did a video about 3 or 4 minutes, and it was talking about the last year both of us working from home, how we got on with it, moving offices and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you have it there. Okay, I think maybe the sound isn't coming through there.
Yeah,
my apologies about that.
That's all right. I can give you the gist anyway, right?
Tell us roughly what you were talking about.
Yeah, so the idea came up because I was thinking a bit more about rapport, right? But also, I work from home and I have my own office, and I work from home a lot. I go out and shoots, but Rochelle worked with multinationals, and so this year she went totally remote. So, we worked from home. We shared an office for a while, and now Rochelle has her office upstairs. But we also talked about, how we ended our day together, finished work, left the office, which was great, right? The feedback when we released it was great, because it obviously struck a chord with a lot of couples, because they had gone through the exact same thing. And there was a big conversation. There was like 28 comments. There was 40 interactions. We had over 900 views, which is good for me. So it was a really successful piece of content. So that's the rundown on it.
So that brings the question to mind, really. How much of your personal life should you share, in your business, in the context of your business?
Yeah.
How much is too much? How much is too little? Because you were talking about building rapport and showing people who you are as a person and what makes you tick really as a person.
Yeah.
But there's a fine line between, showing people who you are behind the scenes to a certain degree, as you did, and overstepping the mark and oversharing, which is something that we don't really want to be doing. So how do you find that balance, Paul?
Right, and that's a fantastic question, and a question that a lot of clients ask as well, right? So so it's so subjective, right? Okay, so you got to think, right, what type of person are you, number one, okay? And then what kind of brand do you have? What kind of business do you have? And who are your audience, right? So all of those things come into play, right? I'm not advocating for anybody to go crazy YouTube on it, okay? And jumping around the place and saying today I do this and all that, which the YouTubers started this. Like, that's why we're sharing more with our videos, because it's come from YouTube, right? And they started it all out. But what I would say is, don't do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, straight up, because it'll come across as uncomfortable. So only do things that you're comfortable with. What I tend to do is share things that in some way relate to my business or my business persona. So for example, before this lockdowns and all that, I used to do one-to-one business meetings. And at the end, I would do a little video on my phone that I would share. And this would be off the cuff, just me and the person that I'd met talking. Now that's switched to when we do our Zoom calls, I record the end of it sometimes and I put them online. It gets great feedback and it's more off the cuff, right? And it shows a bit of personality. Also, for example, sometimes on my runs, I take a photo, right? And I just, post about it and say, on the healthy body, healthy mind, work-life balance, right? So again, there's a relationship to my business there. I do post about my dogs very occasionally, okay? So I'm not a serial dog picture poster, but because there are a lot of dog lovers out there, and it's part of me as well. And also, like, from your area, so I'm in the creative area, so I do share on like video techniques or film techniques or some art piece that I really like, again, because I am in the creative space and it's showing what I'm thinking about and what I'm seeing. So that'd be what I do. So I think it's very subjective, and I would start small and not thinking you have to, talk about what you did yesterday and get into that kind of, detail to begin with, because you'll find your level. And just before we go on to the next part, and a new trend that's happening on LinkedIn is, kind of professional content producers who are now being very entertaining the way they get their messages across. So there's a bit of comedy in it, or they're just being outright entertaining. This has obviously come from TikTok and from YouTube and channels like that, but it is coming into the likes of LinkedIn and more business-orientated platforms. I'm not suggesting that any of us do it, but it's something that you will notice and can build over time. And if you have that comedy gene in you could give it a go. But it is something that's happening.
Something that I wanted to refer back to that you mentioned earlier, which I think is a really important point. When you're doing videos or when you're getting your marketing message out there, you mentioned stories and the use of stories. And I think this is a hugely important aspect, because it's through storytelling that people remember. They remember you, they remember your service, they remember your company. So talk to us a little bit about how you incorporate a story, whether it's your story or the story of how you built your business or where you started from. How do you really find the stories to start with and then incorporate them into your videos, Paul? Okay, so
we could actually do an hour-long talk on this subject. Okay, so with story. So first of all, a stat, right? This is from Jennifer Aker. She is a professor in Stanford School of Business, and they did a study and they found that if people were told a story, they remembered it 22 times more than facts alone, right? So, and I'm trying to do it in my business, and I'm advocating people to do it as well, so that if you want to get a message across, think about a story that can be a vehicle for your message, because people do remember stories, and it builds trust, and there's loads of things, chemical things that go on in our brain with stories. So like examples of stories, origin story is a really good one. Okay, you know, we all have our origin story for our business. Whenever we're 2 minutes, 3 minutes talking to somebody explaining our business, how did I get where I am? Oh, I did this course and that course. We all have our own origin. That's a story. Your testimonials from your clients, that's also a story. Your mission, your vision, these can be incorporated into stories as well. And that's just 3. But actually, on one of my blogs, I think I have a list that I got from a post, and there's about 20 or 30 examples of stories. So one I did, so I was testing it a little bit, and it's on my About Us page on my website, so people can check it out. So I was trying to sort of say how I ended up in a very story-orientated career, because, you know, I got into video making. I've made some short documentaries, and now I get my clients' messages across on video as well. So it's very about getting messages across. And I kind of said that is because I've always enjoyed meeting people and hearing their stories, right? And I related it back to my love of hitchhiking. And I told this story. So even when I was younger, I did lots of hitchhiking. And in Australia, like I've hitchhiked on a lot of different continents. In Australia, I hitchhiked right from the top, from Darwin right down to Sydney. It took me a couple of months. So what I incorporated in this story to show that it would have been weird if I'd ended up in any other type of profession. So example, sorry, yeah.
Wow. That's, I think it really goes to show that the story is the hook. You know, if you're wanting to reach your audience, then you've got to bring them in and entice them into your world, and the story is how you do it. So you know, you must be quite adept at finding the story. You know, some people might not think they have a story, but how do you tease that out of them, Paul?
It's because that's one of my favorite things actually is talking to having that discovery meeting with the clients, because you know, sometimes it can be the origin story, it can be how they got there, or there's things that clients say all the time, and they don't realize that that's a really excellent hook that would engage their audience. They need somebody outside of their business looking in that will see that. And like one of my first clients for Social Video HQ, he had a vegan food business, but I got to know him because he was in my locality. But he actually he got into healthy eating because he'd had cancer. Now he was now cancer free, but during the process of becoming cancer free, he had changed his eating habits, going from normal to vegan, and became an advocate. And that was his story. So we made a brand video. It was a minute video, and that was the story.
And you managed to encapsulate that in a minute.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the work. That's the work.
Right. Yes, that's the expertise. But you know, you show people how to do their own videos as well. You do videos for them, and even you show them how to. They can tell their story through an animation, which is another fun way of doing it. But if somebody wants to make their own video,
yeah,
what are the things that you should avoid?
Okay, so
when it comes to doing videos.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I cut you off there. Sorry. Right. So just a few things, right? These would be my top 5, right? So when if you're starting making your own videos, you know, you might think, oh, I have to put so much into this video. I have so many things to say. Actually, just take a breath. Think about saying one thing that will stick with people. Don't make videos that are too long. You know, it's fine to have long videos if the content is good, right? But if it's just very waffly, if it takes you 2 or 3 minutes to get your point, that won't connect well on social media, because people are scrolling, you've got to make that connection. So I'd say, so for social media videos, for expertise points, I try and go for 30 seconds to a minute. If it's interviews, I might go 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So you got to think about the content and the length that it needs to be. Secondly, captions, right? So when people are scrolling through social media with the sound off, and when your video comes up, they don't know what you're saying, right? Unless you have captions running on the bottom of your video, okay? And then they might go, oh, that's an interesting topic, and they might click on it. So captions are essential.
And where did they find captions, Paul?
Okay, so captions. Again, we could do a talk on captions, right? And where to find them. Excuse me. So what I use, and there's lots of different methods, right? What I use for captions is I create my video, and then I use a service called rev.com. So I send the link or the video to rev.com, and they create captions. I can edit it on their system, and I download the file. And then when it comes to LinkedIn or anything like that, you upload your video, and you upload, it's called an SRT file. That's what you get. It's just a text file. So that's a simple way of doing it. There are different ways of doing it, and some are quite complex. So as you get more used to making your videos, you might find a system that works better for you. But that's currently the one I use. I'll be switching from that because I use Adobe, and Adobe is now releasing a text to speech, so I can do it all in Adobe, hopefully in the not too distant future.
So they pick up all the speech that's in the video and automatically transcribe it.
Yeah, and they transcribe it, and then you can view it on their editor, and if they get a word wrong, you can change that or whatever, and then you can download the correct file. It's very, very needed. So a few other things: use a tripod, keep your camera steady. Don't have this shaking camera thing, because even that makes it hard to make a video because you're trying to, keep yourself in frame and all that. Make it easier, and it also increases your production values. Have your camera at eye level or a little bit above eye level, because if it's below looking up, it's not a very flattering view. And then audio, very important. Okay, so when we're recording, try to record in a location that's not too noisy. Sometimes we have to record in a noisy location, and that's it. But buy a mic, okay? So you can get them for 10, 20 quid, plug it into your phone, plug it into your laptop, and clip it near where your voice is, or use a headset if you're recording on your computer. And audio is half of the experience that people have of your videos. So you can, for very little money, you can like have really good audio. So the next one is altogether: clothes, location, background, okay? So going back to our brand, what are we trying to communicate, okay? And always being, or as much as possible, being on your brand, okay? So always think about what's in your background. Are you showing your brand off? Are you in the correct attire that you want to communicate with your audience? Okay, so, and it varies, depends on your audience. And finally, and the most important thing is content, right? So all the rest of the things can be perfect, and if the content isn't good, nobody's going to really interact with it. So I'm always reminded there's a Simon Sinek video that I keep on going back to because it's brilliant. So it was shot at the beginning of when they were doing the TED Talks, and the audio is really bad in it. It's buzzing. Halfway through the talk, they changed the mics. And so you would think there's a problem. Not really, because it has that particular video, and there's more iterations of it, has 14 million views on YouTube, right? Because the content was really good, so we'll put up with little problems. So your content is your first thing, and then all these other little things just help you keep your audience engaged. So content is my main thing.
Right. And how do you engineer your content and all the other things that you've painted a picture about? to ensure that we get good interaction from the video when we put it on social media? How do you get good response from your audience?
Okay. So, and I think I suppose I have been gearing up over the last 2 years to produce, to put up a steady stream of content. Okay, there's been blips, but I'm not the finished article, but I'm definitely getting there. And I think you do learn as you go along a little bit, particularly about the platform that you're strongest on. So I would concentrate. I'm on a lot of platforms, but I concentrate mainly on LinkedIn. So for example, I find, mix it up is what I would say. So, you're not having the same type of video, the same looking video, maybe the same length. So I mix it up with interviews and expert pieces and other types of shots, so that when people see your content, you don't go, oh, that's kind of similar, I've seen some of that before, and go past it. So mix up the video content and then intersperse your video content with picture posts or polls, like my behind the scenes shots that I put up from shoots, get really good interaction. And then I think for your audience, they're not always seeing the exact same thing coming up, so it interests them a bit more. So mix it up is one thing. And I would say there's this thing as well, document, don't create. It's a phrase. I think people might have heard of it before. And it really is a good idea, because first of all, it gives an impression of your company or your business life. So it's fleshing out, it's giving you a little bit of background. And what it means is, like, for example, if you get a new piece of equipment, take a photo of it, post about it, say why you're happy you got it and how it's going to help your clients or stuff like that. If you have a new hire, do a little video with them, talk about them coming into the company and how they're excited and things like that. So with this document, don't create, you're not always searching for things to talk about, because you're actually documenting your company's journey. So that's a really helpful one, I think. And then I think one is thinking outside the box. Sorry, just 1 second. So when you start creating your content, you're going to have definite ideas. And then once you're creating it, you're going to start seeing what works, what's getting good interactions, and what isn't. And then you might have some sparks of sort of creativity. Like, for example, with me, it was just an idea where I said, okay, I'm going to start just recording a little bit at the end of a business meeting on my phone, and then it turned into on Zoom. And these videos get really good connection with my audience, but also the audience of the person that I'm interviewing. They get to show their expertise, and also I'm reaching a new audience. So it was just an off-the-cuff idea that's become a really sort of well-received piece of content. Right. And just recently, like, I had the idea that, I have a lot of partners who are in the marketing sphere, and I work well with marketers. So now I'm creating this. I shot the first one today. Marketing. It's going to be called the Marketing Hub, and it'll be a series of interviews with marketing professionals where they can talk about their expertise. So you get these little flashes of ideas, and then you act on them, and then you see what the reaction is. If it's good, you keep it. If it's not, you reiterate.
And is it good to just experiment a bit, Paul? Say you post a video about some new equipment you have, as you were saying, and you get a response. Is it then good to follow up the response you get with a little video about that? Hey, we got good feedback on the fact that we're now doing X, Y, Z. Is that a way to create content as well?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. And and as well, because people can often ask you questions, like on a post, you put up something, but then they say, oh, that piece of equipment, does it do this, right? Well, that's a question that's been asked by your target audience. So definitely that's a post for the future.
Right. And does it matter when you said mix it up? Does it matter if for example, you do a video one time that isn't on a tripod, that you're actually walking along? So the camera, you know, you're if you're on your phone, it's walking with you and there's a bit of movement, but is that acceptable, would you say?
So I have a gimbal for my phone, so I'm really fancy. They're not very expensive. Okay, there's the I put them up in the show notes. They're about 120, 130 euros. So it's a gimbal, so it's a motorized gimbal you can have for your phone. It's very good for when you're at an event, when we have events again, and so you're saying, I'm here at this event today. You're not just holding the phone. You can hold it away from you. You can angle it, and it keeps the phone steady. Okay. So, yeah. So, like, there is. Let's say, for example, you get a video testimonial from a client, and it's shot on the phone, and it's a bit shaky, right? Is that good to put up on your social media and on your website? I think absolutely yes, okay? Because different types of video should have different types of production value, right? So if it's front of website, if it's your brand video, I think high production value, okay? Social media, it's more transient. I think lower production values work. Like recorded Zoom meetings are fine, right? And then particularly with customer testimonials, I'm now of the opinion the less produced it looks, the more believable and the more authentic it feels to people who are watching it, okay? So if it's shot on a phone, if it's shaking, that's fine. If there's ums and ahs from the person giving the testimonial, it's more real to us. So when I'm shooting testimonials for clients, I'm not into putting branding on them, and also I'm not trying to cut or edit out ums and ahs. I'm trying to let the client speak naturally.
That's interesting. Yeah. So it's not a polished video. It's raw, as it were. Raw.
Yeah. And then in our brain, we go, that's more real.
Right. That's interesting. I just want to ask the audience, if anybody has any specific questions they want to put to Paul, can you please put them in the chat? Because we don't want to keep him forever. I'm sure he's got other things to do this evening, as has everybody else. So we'll give you a chance to put your question if you have something specific that you want him to answer for you. In the meantime, there's a couple of questions I want to ask you, Paul, which is, you mentioned a lot that you put a lot of posts on LinkedIn. And you target a lot of businesses. What about if you have a business that isn't really conducive, shall we say, to putting lots of posts on LinkedIn? How do you adapt your content or your production and the message that you want to get out for each of the main social platform, shall we say, like Instagram or Facebook? Is there a big difference between what you do on LinkedIn and what somebody should do on those platforms?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So in essence, no, right? So in essence, like, let's say if we're talking only businesses, right? Our business people, like, you're showing your expertise, you're showing credibility, you're building rapport, okay? And, I've done a few courses from YouTubers over the years, because these guys, they've been doing it for like 10 years, and that's the way social media and social media video has gone. I do think tone will change a little bit. The tone on LinkedIn compared to the tone on Instagram or TikTok, it's totally different, right? And on TikTok, we might be, I think we definitely have to be a bit more entertaining, because it's more of an entertainment platform. But I do think the essence of what you're trying to do, the bedrock of what you're trying to do should stay the same. How you communicate it will change.
Right. Yes. And is there any difference in the length of videos you should be aiming for? Like TikTok, is it like 20 seconds,
Yeah,
or what's the length?
I think it's 20th. I straight up, I'm only after joining TikTok. I'm engrossed in it though. Yeah, and then like Instagram, the videos for the main feed need to be under a minute, and but then going back to that, like I think they're all social media platforms where people scroll. So I think we need to be thinking shorter for those ones. But yeah, so different platforms. Like Facebook seems to be going for longer videos at the moment, whereas Instagram is the short video arm of Facebook, and then TikTok is really short. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. We have a question from Claire Brett, and she says, should you still engage with your customers personally, even if your business is not personality driven? That's an interesting question.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I think it will definitely it will set you apart, right? Because if you become the face of your business in some way, right? So you're starting to, because we like, we normally buy face to face, but online we also buy face to face. So I do think if you're on there and you start to become the face of your brand, that the people start to establish a relationship with you, that it will set you apart, because your own personality, your expertise is kind of unique to you. And I think, sort of posts that are just this is our brand, this is what we make, where there's nothing really, there's no story behind that, there's no personality behind that. I think that's going to become less and less, actually.
Okay, thank you for that. We have a question now from Liliana. She says, is it worth producing for YouTube for marketing purposes? Oh, in other words, is it worth really going to town producing a video which goes out on YouTube? That's a good question.
Yeah, it is, and it's an area I'm looking to grow this year, because like there are over 1 billion YouTube users, right? And the demographics, I put a post out about the demographics recently. The millennials are, what they mainly do on YouTube is they look up how to do something, right? So that's, it was from Think Google, which is a really good resource. And so what I was thinking was, if millennials are in your target audience, can you be putting videos on how to do something on YouTube? Because that's what they're searching for. So YouTube is very strong, and I think ads on YouTube, because Google knows so much, because everybody's logged in, so they know what type of people they are and what they're interested in. I think ads on YouTube will become more and more powerful, and are powerful at the moment.
That's really interesting. Yeah. I think I've noticed the quality improving as well. So that's a really good question. Then we have another one from Shane. He says, what's the best length of time for a LinkedIn video?
Okay, so that is a good question. Best length of time with LinkedIn, like I make videos that could be 2 or 3 minutes long. They tend to be interview style videos, where somebody's giving a bit of expertise from their area. And I also make the sort of 2 minutes videos with expertise, and then the micro content. I think because people are scrolling, number one as well, shorter videos take you less time to produce. Okay, so you could shoot 5 1-minute videos instead of a 5-minute video, all in one go. So I think starting out 30 seconds to a minute, okay, and get your point across. And I increasingly think that with LinkedIn posts, that if you have one good point and it's 20, 30, 40 seconds, that when people are scrolling, because we all view it, we all go, that's 2 minutes, I don't have 2 minutes. We're hardwired to do it now. So if you have a 20 or 10, 15 second video and they scroll and go, oh, okay, and you have one point and they go, oh, and it sits with them and they can scroll on. I think that's the way to go.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Really good tips there. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed Paul's expertise.